Welcome to the Global Education Station Presents. I'm Annette Levesque, your host, education and technology strategist, and author of eLearning Gold, the ultimate guide for leaders. In each episode, we explore innovative ideas and best practices in education, connecting with directors, CEOs, authors, and thought leaders. Together, we'll share stories and insights to inspire and engage learners globally. Today, I'm excited to introduce Govindh Jayaraman. Govindh is a dynamic entrepreneur and executive coach with decades of experience spanning healthcare, renewable fuels, and technology. He's the founder and creative force behind the acclaimed Paper Napkin Wisdom podcast and book, where he distills powerful life and business lessons from simple sketches and notes. Welcome, Govindh.
I'm excited to be here, Annette. Thanks for having me.
Maybe we can get started with you telling me about your fabulous book, Paper Napkin Wisdom. What inspired this book, Govindh?
Well, I think what inspired the book was the conversations that I was having, and through Paper Napkin Wisdom, which is a podcast. And the podcast really came at a time when I needed it. I needed more experts, more mentors. And instead of just looking in my backyard, and I was lucky enough to have lots in my backyard, I looked beyond that. I looked to some of the masters around the world and thought, how crazy would it be that I could just sort of reach out to them? And if I reached out to them, would they answer? And shockingly, they answered and they responded. And I would have these fabulous conversations. And Paper Napkin Wisdom now has more than 225 episodes live. There are more dropping every single week. It's really become a bit of a phenomenon. Even though I took almost 6 years off from doing the podcast, it's still getting hundreds of downloads a week, and thousands of downloads now that I've started it back up again. So it's really an exciting community, and the lessons learned through doing the first 200 odd podcasts sort of became a book that I did with another mentor, Jack Daly, and that was an inspired effort. It was a wonderful book, and I'm really glad that it's out there. And it really sort of teaches the lessons that can be observed by listening to all the podcasts and seeing the patterns, the success patterns, the secrets, if you want to call it that were left behind by these masters as they experimented with their own successes and their own efforts and their own lives and dealt with challenges, some of them incredible physical challenges, some of them incredible intellectual challenges, other ones incredible emotional challenges. And they shared them all so openly. So the podcast is there, the stories are there, and the book is there.
I love that idea. And I really love I love the idea of taking someone's profound wisdom based on their experience and also you having them write something on a napkin because you have to dwindle, maybe tons of years of experience and ideologies down into what one little thing would you write onto a napkin, which is very difficult to do. And it's going to be profound. How did you come up with that?
I don't know. I think that I've always been inspired by simple things. I find simple things inspiring to me. So I thought maybe foolishly that everybody was like me, and or a lot of people were like me, and that would be a neat thing. But I also found what was interesting is that it was not the secret. Most often, people wrote a place from which we could start, and the conversation leapt from there into the depths of something much greater. Almost every time, the story was greater. The story was bigger and better than just the napkin. But there is something to the brevity of the napkin that give people like a focal point to get started, crystallizing, their story in some cases. But there's that great Mark Twain quote, right? I would have written less if I had more time. And I think that the great ideas in life are expressed simply.
Hmm. Now, given that our audience is primarily leaders in education organizations or education and training programs, what favorite nugget on one of those napkins would be a fave that you'd like to share? that
Favorites,
resonates with you?
there's so many incredible ones. One of my favorites is it was my own. So at one point, one of the Paper Napkin Wisdom guests, Rob Simons, sort of switched the tables on me and said, "Hey, I'd like to interview you." And I wrote, "Do what scares you and do it in public," and that's what the story of Paper Napkin Wisdom was. I was terrified to do this, and I was terrified that it would be bad. And I go back and I still sort of shudder at some of the first ones that I did, and they're also some of the best. They're very raw and very curious, and I really desperately I was hanging on every word that was coming, and I still am, because these lessons that people are sharing are really so um, so detailed, so vivid. You can touch them, and I think that's a powerful medium. I think the story of people's experiences is the richest way we learn. It's how we learned around fires, going back to the beginning of civilization. So using these napkins and having these conversations. So if you want to grow and do what scares you and do it in public would be one. Um, and I think that there are a lot of them that are like that. There are some that are really incredibly simple, like what you appreciate appreciates, which was a beautiful one shared by John Ruhlin. And the idea is, if you appreciate someone or if you appreciate something, the value of it appreciates in your life. And the value of that person, when you appreciate them, appreciates. The value that they contribute appreciates when you appreciate them. All of those kinds of things are tied together. And there are so many wonderful stories that are just like that, simple but profound in their application.
That's amazing. What are some of the favorite? So you said 225 episodes. What are some favorite lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur and being in leadership that you think would be relevant to today and today's educators managing organizations?
Well, there are a lot of them, but I think it all starts in a simpler place. I think that when we are feeling clear and confident, we are able to do the thing in front of us. And I think many times, we procrastinate, we hide from, challenging conversations, from challenging people, from challenging situations, from challenging ourselves, because we are not clear on what we need to achieve. And that lack of clarity gives us a lack of confidence. That lack of confidence prevents us from taking a first step. And really, that's what's necessary. We need to take a step. We need to have a bias to action. Taking action, and that's one of the premises of the book, is take action, right? Have a bias toward action. Whenever you take action, whenever I've taken action, it sort of solves the anxiety or cures the anxiety or quells the anxiety of the outcome, because I've taken one step. And I think that we sometimes diminish the value of one step. We sometimes undermine ourselves with negative self-talk that prevents us from taking that one little step forward. So I think one of the things that I've learned along the way is that I have a powerful sense of optimism, and that powerful sense of optimism is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing in the sense that it can also fuel that procrastination. So it's really important to be clear and confident and take the next step. Do something. Find a win every single day, a small win when necessary, and those small wins can coalesce into something bigger and something bigger. And I think that when we think about environments or industries, like if we think of the education industry, the institutional environment that is education right now, I think people say, "Oh, the problems are much bigger than me. I can't solve them." And while that may or may not be true, you can certainly make them better. You can make today better by taking action, by being yourself in thought, word, and action, applying that to the present moment, because you can make a difference in this moment. And I think that's the message, the core message that would come out of Paper Napkin Wisdom that would resonate with educators, is that they can make a difference. And those little wins are important and significant. And those little wins could be little people, but they could also be little things.
Hmm. I think you're absolutely right. And in today's world where educators are struggling to, they don't have enough resources, and they have a vision of what they want to do, and technology is changing so rapidly, and they have the teaching shortages and can't release teachers for training time and learning time. What are some of those small steps that they can take, or what would you advise them to take under the guise of taking action that might make a difference to help them through this massive time of change with so little resources and support?
Yeah, that's a really big question. But I mean, I think that the first thing that they can do. Let's talk about little tactical things that they can do. Little tools, because I like tools. Tools are great because you can pick up and use the tool um, without thinking about it too much, and then you can make them your own. So a couple tools, and here's the thing that I think educators are really aware of in their dynamic. It's not unlike the small business owner or the entrepreneur or the burgeoning entrepreneur, um, anybody, even in a nonprofit sense, trying to make a difference, right? Every one of these people, every one of these leaders feels under-resourced. Every one of these leaders feels like they don't have enough time, energy, and resources to be able to affect the change they want in the time they have, and their resources are dwindling, and the clock is getting closer to the alarm. So, in every one of these things, they're the same, and the systems that promote momentum are valid ones or worthy ones to apply in those situations. And almost all of those tools relates to creating cadence and heartbeat to how your team functions and operates and coming together. Think about it, the highest and best performing team, if you're thinking about movies, when you're watching a movie, the high performing, well performing team is like the Navy SEALs or the SWAT team that comes in. And one of the first things they always do is, okay, let's synchronize our watches, right? They synchronize their watches. Why do they do that? Well, to get on the same rhythm, to get on the same page, so they know what time it is. And that's symbolic, but doing that as a team is a really valuable exercise. So thinking about it in an education space, starting off your day with a morning huddle. And if you can't do it every day, you'd be surprised how many people can huddle in a very short period of time. I would once do this experiment where we'd have a room full of CEOs, and we all know how long-winded CEOs can be. But a room full of CEOs, 60 or 70 of them, and we could huddle across all 60 or 70 CEOs in less than just a few minutes. And it was quite profound. Like in under 5 minutes, we could have everybody huddle, and that in that time sharing a one-word opener, let us know how they're feeling, and give an attention for the day. So very, very quick. And preparation is the key to that. So having a consistent structure that people could lean into on a regular basis. The other thing that you can do as part of that is give people the opportunity to celebrate each other on a weekly basis, right? So what does that look like? It's a shout out. The best way to do a shout out is have every individual write out on a little post-it note or scrap of paper. Again, this is stuff that takes no money, right? Little post-it note that they hand to the leader or somebody who's really outgoing. If it's not the leader because they're not the outgoing personality, no problem. Find somebody who likes to be the outgoing one and have that person collect all these little post-it notes and say, oh, well, Govindh wants to shout out Annette for the fabulous job that she does in bringing knowledge and connection to a community of educators across the world, right? That takes just seconds to do. And what happens is two little flares go up in the room every single time when you do this. One little flare is I feel good because somebody said I said this nice thing about Annette. And on the other side, Annette feels good because somebody said something nice about her. And those flares are contagious. Those are really good fires to start. And when you start a day, when you start a week, or you end a week on that with that kind of heartbeat and that kind of rhythm, those are things that don't cost anything but build a lot of momentum. And then on top of it, well, let's say I'm in the back of the room and Annette just got shouted out for building connections, and that's something I want to learn how to do. Well, I know that I can go past the person in the front of the room right to Annette and say, how did you do that? Because I'd like to do that too. Can you help me? it's pretty likely that Annette's going to help you in that situation. So that's a very simple tool. And I've spoken in a run-on sentence. I hope that was okay.
No, that was great. So I love the morning huddle. And I love the fact that you said you could do it with, 70 CEOs, because I picture trying to herd teachers and principals in a school is like herding cats, but it can happen. It can be done. And the shout out. So by the shout out, you mean that, for instance, if Joe helped me fix my computer last week, or, um, Johnny helped me find some awesome resources, free resources to use in the classroom, like whatever that person's done to help develop a knowledge set of what skills we have in house in the team that we may be unaware of, as well as make them feel good.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot that goes on in a team that never sees the light of day, right? There's a lot of really good things that happen within a group, and there really isn't a structure to say thank you. I mean, sometimes people do it. Some people say it really quickly, and people say, thank you, and it moves on to the next thing. Maybe you get a you're welcome. But it's hard for people to acknowledge each other. And remember that napkin that I talked about earlier on, what you appreciate appreciates. Finding a structure by ways that you celebrate great things that are happening. Look, too many times we do meetings and huddles. Like when we call a meeting as leaders, what do? Well, here's our objectives for this period of time, and we need to do this thing, and you're not doing enough, and we need more of this, and we need more of that. And you're coming to your team with a bunch of demands very often. And maybe they don't seem like demands. Maybe there are ways legitimately of trying to do things better. But unfortunately, way too often, it feels demanding in that context. So what can we do differently? Well, one of the things that we can do is build a structure where we're sharing some of those wins, where we're appreciating some of other people. And if we share the structure for what that's going to look like, right, by ways of calling it a huddle, saying this is what we're going to do, think before you come in, make notes, encourage everybody to come in with a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, they could share, answer 3 questions. What were you working on yesterday? What did you accomplish? What do you intend to accomplish today? Is there anything you're stuck in? For example, those are 3 questions that you could use. You could use other ones like, maybe you just focus on the challenge. I'm stuck here. I could use some help. And just put out there. Everybody just says what they're stuck with, what they could use some help with, or something they felt good about in terms of their day or their week last week. And everybody's got something. Right? So they come with something very quick, ready, prepared. They can share it. There's no discussion at the time. Nobody stops and digs in at the moment. You just acknowledge it. Take any discussion that needs to be had offline. And the shout out, again, that celebration, again, is something that is prepared. It's done in writing in advance, and that's why it can go quickly. When we're prepared, we can go quickly. So if it's shared and given to somebody, yes, they can acknowledge, hey, I want to thank Johnny for helping me out with that IT problem. Susan really helped me by getting me to my class on time, or helping me get prepared for that class, or hey, my car broke down yesterday, and Mary was critical in helping me get home to my kids. Whatever the case is, celebrating those things is an essential part of being a team, and a high-performing team needs even more of that. And in an under-resourced environment, it's really important to take some time and put some positive in the day. And as leaders in education, if you make that part of your day, it will cause a ripple effect that will take off everywhere else in the school and in the system.
I love that. And I love the idea of celebrating our wins and the things that are happening already within the school. I also like the idea that, a lot of the struggles I'm hearing about from education leaders are we can't make time, we can't carve out time for different types of learning. And, when you hear what people are being acclaimed for within your very own teams, we don't have time in that day as educators to interact always on a deeper level with 70 teachers at a school. And the shout outs, you're actually starting to get to know other people and what they can do and where their skill sets are. to start to harvest some of those things informally. You're crossing them in the hallway, hey, can you help me with XYZ? Knowing that now they have this talent. So it's a great way to foster learning. If someone's playing with AI and tried a new tool and helped someone else, that's a great way to use micro learning, small bits of learning opportunities that are not formal, that don't necessarily cost extra time in a day or cost you having to shut things down for a day to go and train everybody. And it's one of those little step starting points you were talking about to getting things done. What do you think about also taking it a step further? And when you were talking about sharing your obstacles or, those three questions, maybe further breaking people down into, like in the staff meeting, perhaps into smaller groups to share some of those obstacles, because obstacles could be hard to solve, right? In a group of 70 people. But if you take the 70 people and break them down into groups of 8 or 10 during a staff meeting, have you had any success with anything like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different tools that you can use. Again, I'm a big fan of tools. One of the great tools that I think of is, what I call the exponential organization chart. And I want you to think about the typical organization chart, right? Where knowledge or instruction or education is often comes from the top. In an organization chart, you have one or two people at the top, and then it's, a few more people, and then a few more people, and it's sort of built like a pyramid, right? And it's like a game of Plinko, right? You take a ball, and if you take a ball and you throw it from the top of a game of Plinko, it sort of finds its one way down. And it does. That's the way sort of like knowledge and information travels in this sort of hierarchical organization. It can find good leading places, but that tends to be just in one or two places. It doesn't spread very well. So an exponential organization chart is instead like a circle. So think about a circle where everybody's around a circle. And instead of like these little boxes that are on the Christmas tree, it's the circle, and there are little boxes around the outside of that circle. And imagine if you could draw a line to every single one of them, where every single person is connected to every other person. And that's what you create with a huddle, with these kinds of things. You create this exponential organization where now knowledge can be transferred more organically, where you can, over time, determine, even not even over time, but even in a short period of time, determine, hey, can you lead this conversation about this thing? This one thing that we want to talk about. Like, hey, ChatGPT prompts that could be really useful in developing coaching questions in mathematics. And the math department gets together and does that. Or across disciplines. In all, what are some great prompts to create ChatGPT coaching questions that I can pose to my students, right? Age appropriate, and so on and so forth. So this one group goes out there and goes and plays with some ChatGPT prompts around that. Maybe another group goes around and says, how do I use Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets in innovative ways to create more integrative and immersive learning experiences, again, across a variety of disciplines? And they go out and brainstorm that. Right? So you have these different working groups that are, again, circles of working groups that are working together, and they come back to the bigger circle and they share their ideas. Now you've got 3, 4, 5 people in each group that are now experts within the team who others can rely upon. It's not all coming down from the leader. You've now got a group of people that are supporting each other. And that's why I call it the exponential organization chart, because everybody is connected to everyone else. And that's what makes it exponential.
That's amazing. And so, once we've launched some of these new tools in our toolbox, what are some important metrics we should take a look at to know if, as we're trying out and implementing new strategies within our org and our team, how do we know what they're succeeding or what's succeeding and what's a flop?
Well, I mean, I think that's let's put that as the second step, because the first step is to get things going, right? In a situation where you don't have collaboration, or in a situation where a collaboration is hard or limited or constrained for any number of any variety of reasons, while it's a nice idea to have everything figured out and begin with the end in mind. I like all these ideas. Like, all these things are really good, but when you're stuck, the best way to get unstuck is to act. And more planning can be the enemy of done in that situation. So take an action. So the first step is to take an action. Then what happens with that first action, if again, you as a group are collaborating, you can have a very open, and the key is again, heartbeat, regular, huddle, frequency. It's like a heartbeat, right? It's got to happen consistently. So in that consistent communication, you need to ask, hey, what's working? What's not working? And when we determine what's working and what's not working, we can solve what's not working in the direction of what's working. And then we can build some metrics for success, some visions around qualitative and quantitative measures that we can build in as KPI over time. But when we are stuck, when we are under pressure and noise, the solution is action, not planning. The solution is to take a step and assess it. So got to take the step first. Don't forget to assess. I'm not saying don't assess. Certainly not to educators, especially. But what I'm saying is take the step and then assess. Make it bad, then make it better. But just make it. And that goes back to my napkin, where it really is about making it bad and making it better. But if you're not making it, at least make it bad, because then you know you can improve from there, right?
That's awesome advice. Taking a sideways step here, what is right now your personally favorite tech tool?
My personally favorite tech tool. Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, I use ChatGPT a lot. Like I use OpenAI ChatGPT a lot, and what I use it for is brainstorming. I think it's such a great tool to not tell me what to do, not to be instructive, but to fuel my curiosity, right? So a great way that I use it is I'll say, I'm thinking about doing blah, blah, blah. Like I'm thinking about relaunching my podcast, right? What questions should I be asking myself to ensure that I've thought this out, right? And I can even say, like, if I really like an author, I can say, take on the persona of Jim Collins. Now ask me coaching questions based on his writings that would be applicable to me. Now, you don't have to like Jim Collins. You could like Marianne Williamson. And you can say, take on the persona of Marianne Williamson and ask me questions that would coach me toward a decision that I want to make. So you can find a way within ChatGPT to have the ultimate brainstorming tool on your shoulder. And if you're stuck on what to do, as a leader, think about going back to these huddles and these meetings and these things. And if you're stuck about what kind of questions you should be asking your group, and you're not getting support from senior leadership for this kind of a thing, well, go to ChatGPT and say, hey, take on the persona of an accomplished educational leader and coach me through this situation. I want to accomplish this. What's some questions that I should be thinking about? What problems should I be solving? What problems could I encounter along the way? Right? So you can use it as a brainstorming tool. You can use it as a coaching tool, and it's an ultimate coach sitting on your shoulder. Now, it doesn't take the place of a human. You still need to work with the humans around you. But when you're sitting there doubting yourself at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night before you're about to do something, you're not alone in thinking of brainstorming ideas. So that's how I use ChatGPT a lot, to just sort of fuel my curiosity and make sure that I'm asking a bunch of questions. Because I said earlier on that I'm phenomenally optimistic, right? I've got a great sense of optimism. And, maybe that's kind of been coming across in this podcast a little bit, that I've got this can-do sense. Well, sometimes that's my own blinder. And I can get trapped in my sense of, oh, I can do it. We can do this. This is great. And I miss the trap doors along the way. So I'll go to AI and say, hey, what am I missing? I think this is really great. What are some things that I should be aware of on the other side? What are some challenges, right? And that gets me thinking.
It's my new favorite tool too. And I love using it for the brainstorming. I love how it helps you expand an idea or a period of thought into things that you may not have considered. And even sometimes it uses language that I wouldn't normally use, and I adopt a word. I think, oh, that's a great word. You're just looking for that perfect word in a sentence. You have your idea flowed out. But in other
Yeah.
ways, it is totally done me over, let me tell you. So, fact checking, it's not always so great when it comes to facts and research. Mark this, educators and students. It burnt me twice, actually. Once, when I was preparing book club questions, I asked ChatGPT and I had not finished the book, but Govindh, I fully intended on finishing that book. And it was my job to make the questions. And I thought, well, I'll just get ChatGPT to help me make the book club questions and I'll be finished before the session. Well, it used the wrong characters in the book on one of them. And on the second one, it said that the author hadn't written that book, that it didn't exist. I had to go back and double check. I said, I hope to God I haven't been reading the wrong book. I'm pretty sure that this author wrote this book. So great for creativity, brainstorming. I love it. I use it every day. But I'm exploring other forms of AI as well for better citations and research and things like that. So validating is huge.
Yeah, there's a old adage, trust but verify. Don't trust and verify. Like, don't trust what you get. Be curious about everything you get from AI. I mean, even the citation stuff is really, really good, but it's always worthwhile verifying that the citation is indeed valid. It doesn't take long to verify the citation once it's provided. But ChatGPT is not a great place for citations. And you know what they call it? They call it hallucinations, which is
Really?
AI hallucinations. But I think that's just a real fun, expensive way of just saying it's making stuff up.
Exactly. Govin, today, what have I not asked you that you want to make sure people know about?
What have you not asked me? I mean, I think, what have you not asked me? You've asked me a lot. I think, well, one of the things that I think people just don't hear often enough is how much educators are appreciated. I mean, I'm a father. Before I'm anything, I'm a husband and father of three amazing kids, and each of them have incredible opportunities and incredible challenges. And my eldest is now a secondary school grad going into college, university. And my middle child is going into grade 11. So she's becoming a junior from the U.S. context, and my youngest is going to become a freshman or grade 9. And I think that each of them have had great opportunities and great challenges, and I'm really grateful for the role that educators have played in supporting each of their journeys and meeting each of them. And I think that very often the incredible weight of the system and structure plays on the shoulders of educators, especially those in administrators and the administrative level, and they don't hear often enough how much they're appreciated. So I would convey from parents who are sometimes without a voice how appreciative we are of the work done in education. And we've been really lucky in one of my companies. We were able to support educators during COVID, and support the reopening safely of schools in New York State, especially, and other jurisdictions. But we were, supporting some of the largest districts in New York State for safe reentry. And I can tell you, I saw so many passionate educators and administrators in that time, and I feel lucky to have been able to collaborate with all of them.
That's so true. COVID was definitely a very challenging time for educators. And even today's classrooms are, I don't think I ever had a more difficult job in my life than when I was in front of 70 students a day, in a high school with very little time. And the way it's often mapped out is completely different when you hear it in the news. But, you hand out one assignment, that's 70 freaking assignments to mark. It was a lot of work. And, there's huge challenges in the system today. So that's so nice that to give educators a shout out and to remind them that, sometimes you just impact one student's life and that student has a huge impact on the world. We don't even see where students go sometimes when they leave us. It's amazing.
Well, everybody is the Marvel superhero in a story we know nothing about.
Hmm.
everybody that we encounter. And that means colleagues, that means you, me, our kids. And so the students in a classroom, the learners in a classroom are all the same. And they're all, the Marvel superhero in a story we know nothing about. And the kindness that most educators apply their day to day gives them, they're the lighthouse. They're the safe place to land, the place to experiment, learn, and fail, and grow for a lot of people, a lot of young people, a lot of older people, and I think it's a really important place, and no
Hmm.
more so now than now. I think we're at a seminal period in society, and lots of crazy stuff happening all over the world, and educators' role has never been more important than it is today.
Agreed. So, wrap up question. In each episode, we ask our current guest a question that was created by a past guest, not knowing who would be answering the question or what their role would be in leadership. So your question comes from Andrew Barrett, the director of R&D at Scale Learning, where they are actually using AI to shape the future of education. And Andrew's question was, what is something you believe is true that very few people agree with you on?
I believe, and maybe this is sort of falling back into my old, into everything else that I've been saying so far today. So maybe not be surprising, but I believe that uh, everybody, every single person, can accomplish great things if they're willing to pay the price for that success. If they're willing to pay the price, and the price of the sacrifice along the way, sacrificing time, energy, um, sleep, whatever it is. But anybody can accomplish great things if they're willing to sacrifice for it. And I think that a lot of people, I think that maybe in the past more people would have believed that than they do today. But I believe it passionately.
Me too. I really do. Thank you so much, Govind, for coming to speak with us today and sharing your wisdom and your insights from your fabulous entrepreneurial journey. It was so much fun and I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.